Welcome back to Earth Chronicles, Book 1, The Fifth Pinnacle by H.G. Shuler. Chapter 19, Vietnam, 1963. Bobby Prescott was a known storyteller who came from a fanatical religious family. So, when he shouted across the sweltering hot rice paddy that the president had been shot dead, Harlan wasn't sure if he believed him or not. Turning, he looked behind him trying to see through the thick, blurry texture of humidity. He wipes at the heavy moisture clinging to his face, then blinks hard, trying to make out the unclear, woolly-looking soldier. He hesitates a moment thinking about how Bobby, who is a sergeant in rank, was always spouting off about this war which had been raging now for 8 years. He wonders how President Kennedy could have been shot while thousands of miles away from Vietnam. He throws his rifle up horizontally over his iron pot helmet, then down the back of his neck across his shoulders. His hands are hanging from both ends of it as it comes to rest on his camouflage fatigues. Sweat dripping from his face, he turns and starts walking, splashing his way through the rice paddies. "Sir, they're saying it might be part of a larger attack on the U.S. mainland." When Harlan returned to his platoon, he sees 8 or more soldiers huddled around a radio. Confusion was obvious in the camp as news of the horrific event had already shocked the world. Walking up to the men, he notices several weeping openly. "Lieutenant," one of them shouts while giving a quick salute. "It's a bad day, sir. The president's been murdered." The others follow suit, standing at attention and saluting. "It's just been within the hours, sir." Without responding, Harlan reaches into his fatigue shirt pocket and pulls out a small high school photograph of his wife, then salutes. "We were blindsided by this one, man. No question. Take time to feel the pain. Let it get deep down inside you and resonate. But don't let it overwhelm you. Remember why we're here. We've still got a job to do. Use this day for motivation." Truth be told, none of them, including Harlan, really knew why they were here. This thought suddenly hits him. He salutes again, waving the men off. Peering into the picture, he smiles because he misses her. Also, because he's remembering their honeymoon night. His wife is a blonde-haired, green-eyed, bona fide beauty. Rumors have been sifting around camp for weeks about a possible withdrawal. President Kennedy was the one said to be behind it. He lifts his eyes up from the photograph toward the sun and pans his face around a hazy, white-blue sky. He's wondering when he will see her again, if he will see her again. It's as if he's hoping the answers will somehow miraculously come to him from out of the distant sun. Finally, he takes off his steel pot helmet, pulls at his boonie hat that is slid up inside it, places the cloth hat back on his head, and sits down atop the helmet. Hot dust rises from the commotion into his nostrils, coating an already filthy face and giving him the feeling of permanence. He kisses the picture and places it back in his shirt pocket, buttoning it tight. Lieutenant Harlan Lancaster was an original. There were few officers respected as much by their men. He had the natural gift of oversight, directing his deep reconnaissance platoon with firmness while at the same time fitting in as one of them. This was a feat rarely attempted and less rarely accomplished, but Harlan felt comfortable leading and being one of the guys. His platoon was divided into 2 squads, with 1 sergeant for each squad, altogether a total of 30 men. Sergeant Bobby Prescott was a squad leader along with Sergeant Harry Deal, nicknamed by his squad the Real Deal. The chaos caused by the tragic event in Dallas, Texas, continued throughout the afternoon. Eventually, the whole platoon of 30 sat around the radio, listening with a quiet eagerness for any words that might give a rational end to the reasons of such treachery. They were not to come, and neither was the understanding of exact details of responsibility. That night Harlan lay on his aluminum frame cot, still thinking of his wife, and still suffocating in the sultry, sticky airlessness. By this time, he already understood that any hope of withdrawal had died with the president. 2 more years, he whispers. 2 more years before I can see her. He reaches next to his cot, picks up a warm bottle of vodka, leans his head forward, and downs 2 ounces of the sleeping potion. A moment later, he is being talked to out of the shadows by a voice he doesn't recognize. "Tomorrow, go right and take your men with you." "Sergeant Prescott? Bobby? Is it you?" "Tomorrow, go right and take your men with you." Jumping up, Harlan inadvertently drops the bottle of vodka in the sandy dirt. Before it can spill too much, he snatches it back, then looks around his tent. "Bobby, what the heck? We need you. Dimensions are separating." "What? Where the blazes are you?" When he doesn't get an answer, he takes another swig from the bottle. He is still scanning the tent when the voice starts again. "Dimensions are separating. Bobby, if you're pulling a fast one, I'll come out where I can see you." His eyes had reached every inch of the tent by the time he noticed that the voice had stopped. He stood there quiet, hoping it would start back up, but this time it did not. The voice stopping had irritated him more than it did speaking, because to him, it seemed to have stopped in the middle of a page. What was it trying to tell him? Was it important? It must be, he thought. He laid the bottle aside, slid past his cot, pushed back the tent door canopy, and looked outside. He wasn't expecting to see anything. In his heart of hearts, he knew the voice had come from another realm. He didn't want to admit it, but looking out around his tent, now, he knew it for sure. The voice wasn't human. He had heard stories growing up about the spirit realm, about how sometimes they would talk to humans. His mother and father both believed in angels. Was this voice one of them? He wondered. At such a moment as this, he gets the idea to write his wife a letter. He allows the canopy door to fall, its heavy weight closing the tent back tight. Back inside, he sits at a small table and reaches into his backpack, pulling out a metal container. Inside are his stationery and pen. He takes one more look around the tent, still wondering, only now with a sense of awe. Pen in hand, he looks down at the golden swirls edging the stationery, touching them in deep thought as if they have some parallel connection to his life. He is in the midst of sinking downward, twirling like a corkscrew into thoughts about his wife and the events of the day. Deeply moved by the experience with the voice, he begins to write. "My dear Catherine, let me start this letter by saying how much I miss you and how much I wish we were together. Today, we got the terrible news that the world continues spinning out of control. The unprovoked murder of our president, who was beloved by many, is proof enough. It was a day I wanted desperately to be holding you in my arms, quieting any tremble you may have gotten from the shocking news. I hope, my darling, that your sleep, though being hindered by the landmark day, will not completely elude you. I am softened by the thought that your prayers, which you are in a habit of doing every night, will bring you a degree of comfort. For a while, we were excited about rumors floating around about a complete withdrawal of troops. Today, I am disappointed to tell you that those hopes were assassinated along with President Kennedy. God rest his soul. It was he, rumor tells it, that was behind the withdrawal. Still, after 8 years of such a senseless war, maybe our home country will end the misery sooner rather than later. By now, it should be clear that there will be no winners, only survivors, the numbers of which go down daily. If unexpectedly the higher-ups do indeed end this puzzle of a war, then get the confetti ready. I will be fuzzy-headed from the exhaustion of traipsing over 9,000 miles back to the bluegrass of Kentucky. But never will I stop running until I kiss your milky white face again. More than anything else, you're the thing that keeps me going. The other day, I noticed that I was talking to myself about you. It's not that I've lost my mind, but rather proof that you are with me, helping me. You're the thing, dear, really the thing that keeps me going, and you will be the thing that brings me back home. Earlier, we received orders to begin a reconnaissance mission tomorrow at 1,300 hours. We will keep our nose to the ground and do our usual sniffing around. As I've written to you before, our crew here is a good one. Hopefully, our findings will do some good, maybe save some lives. I say this with the sad knowledge that our field information will be used for search and destroy missions. Hopefully, I can put your mind at ease, relating to you that your husband is at the moment in an area not known for tricks or booby traps. Neither have I heard of any recent ambushes in this section. Tomorrow's patrol will be deeper into the jungle than usual in a free-fire area. But I'm not anticipating a confrontation, and certainly not a chunk of metal that can screw up any man's life. Of course, in war, things can change quickly. My mood is growing much better since I've been writing you this letter. Do you still have that long white dress, the one you wore on our honeymoon? I was thinking about it earlier. How beautiful you looked in it. Do you remember we were on the beach drinking champagne from a bottle? You were barefoot, and the waves were pushing salt water onto the bottom of your dress. I remember your hair and the dress both blowing together in the stiff ocean breeze. It was as if they had blended and became one. When I come home, would you wear it for me on our first date out? I miss you, darling, and with my own eyes, I want to see you in that dress again. In your return letter, would you tell me some things about yourself? Are you still working for the elementary school? Did you decide to get a cat? I think it would do me some good to hear about things going on in your life. Maybe you could walk me through an average day. Hearing about your normal, everyday life will help keep you fresh in my mind. As you are well aware of, there is no normalcy here. So please, don't hold anything back. Nothing's too boring. I need to live normalcy right through the middle of you. Your husband in love, Harlan Lancaster. P.S. I miss you. Harlan carefully double folds the letter, places it inside an envelope, seals, and addresses it. He leaves it on the table while returning the stationery and pen to the metal container. After taking a short drink of vodka, he lays back across his cot, his mind now in a much better place. He hears locusts singing into the night air. Before he closes his eyes, he glances around the tent with strange thoughts of being enlightened, like he has been given an advantage that something, although he doesn't understand what, has been revealed to him. When he finally closes his eyes, there's an immediate picture of his wife in his mind. They're on the beach, and she is wearing the white dress. She is walking, and the soft ends of the dress are fluttering in the wind. He is walking up behind her, reaching out, chasing, trying to touch her fingers. Wordlessly, she gestures back to him. He can see her lips. She is saying, "I love you." Then she says, "Come on, handsome. Let's get our feet wet." Early, the next morning, dawn light is filling the tent. After a shave, Harlan stands in front of a mirror no bigger than his hand, wiping the remaining lather from his face. The day gets started quickly with the loud, shrieking words, "Come here to me, you little piss ant." When Harlan walks outside into the camp, he notices others doing the same. An undersized, skinny soldier named Eric is chasing a small, scruffy-looking dog that has ventured into the camp. "Give it back," the soldier shouts, falling face first into the dusty soil. The tiny mutt has a boonie hat clamp between its teeth and is darting in a circular motion just inside the edges of several tents. The soldier jumps up and continues the chase, this time turning and running across the camp, cutting the dog off. The dog panics, landing hard into the side of a tent, the edges of its canopy covering over him. "Gotcha now, you mangy." Suddenly the dog reappears on the other side of the tent again, running in circles around the camp. The soldier throws his arms up in disgust, then stumbles, starting the chase again. When he comes his way, Harlan throws one arm out, ordering the soldier to stop. When he does, the dog also stops. "Soldier, has the dog killed someone? Possibly your grandmother?" The soldier comes to attention, his arms straight down and tight against his thin frame. "No, sir." "Lieutenant, sir." "Then why are you chasing him?" "Sir, he swiped my hat, sir." "Have you never trusted anybody before?" "And please be at ease, Eric. I'm not trying to drill you." The soldier pulls a green handkerchief from his pants and wipes at the moisture already building on his face. "I'm not sure I know what you mean. You don't know what trust means." "Well, yes, of course I—" Harlan bends down, low to one knee, looking at the dog. He reaches out his hand and gives a soft whistle. "Come here, boy. Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you." The dog looks back at the soldier who had been chasing him. Then he slowly walks up to Harlan, dropping the hat beside his boot. Harlan takes the hat while at the same time petting the dog and looking back at the soldier. Do you see that he trusts me? Yes, sir. Somewhere he learned that trust won't always hurt him. You have to learn when to trust and when not to trust. Harlan stands back up looking out at the other men. Today at 1300 hours, we go on a reconnaissance mission. It's been over a month since we went into a free fire zone. We're going hiking deep into the jungle, and there's no Beverly Hills or beaches on the trail. I want you mentally prepared. Prepare full gear. We won't be back here for 2, maybe 3 days. I don't anticipate a confrontation, but you men know by now to be ready for anything. I want this place buttoned up tight. You know the drill, so make it happen. Sergeant Deal, you, and Sergeant Prescott be at my tent for a briefing at 0900. Oh, and men, there's plenty of time to write a letter. I encourage you to do so not because I'm worried about something happening, but because of the unknown and because your families and you deserve it. Harlan turns, stepping back into his tent. Just as the canopy drops behind him, the heckling begins. Hey, Eric, you couldn't catch a cold, you dimwit. Eric, rarities unlimited here. Your hat is worth $1 million. Do you trust me? I thought the dog must be pissing beer the way you were after it. Haha, Eric shouted back. Everybody's a comedian. The camp's full of Don Rickles today. Slapping the hat several times on his leg, he knocks the dust off, turns, and nearly walks right into Sergeant Deal. Sir, sorry, just trying to get back to my tent. At ease, soldier. Sergeant Deal scans his eyes beyond Eric looking around the camp. Several soldiers are still snickering, shaking their heads, and whispering. He focuses back on Eric, his eyes steady with a taut mix of concern and disappointment. Don't give them a reason to laugh at you. And when they do, don't let them get to you. Private, the best way to react to being laughed at is silence. Anything else just fuels it. Permission to speak freely, sir? Already set at ease. Eric takes the hat back off his head. Squeezing it in his hands, he uses it as stress relief. I've always been laughed at, sir. It's the reason I joined the Army. If you want to curb it, maybe even one day stop it, you'll heed my words. A fire can't keep blazing without fuel. Don't help them make fun of you. Think before you act. And don't ever respond to their laughs. Look, Private, I know you were an orphan. It's in your records. Growing up that way, it couldn't have been easy. But every man has a weakness to overcome. We call it building character. You can't get to another place without first starting the trip. I suggest you start that journey today. Now back to your tent. I want you fully ready for the reconnaissance mission at 1300 hours. Sir, yes, sir. The briefing Harlan has with his 2 squad leaders is a reminder that war is a sprawling sickness. Our mission is to locate and report the coordinates of hidden pockets of VC, Viet Cong. Afterward, you know how it works. They'll be spraying artillery fire. We've not been to this location before, at least not our platoon. Harlan points to a map unfolded on his table. At this point here, you can see where 2 trails cross. Other platoons call it the crisscross trail for obvious reasons. We'll be following the South Trail to this location. Somewhere beyond it are suspected pockets of the VC. It's a 10, maybe 11-hour hike. We'll get 7 or 8 in today, camp with 0 visibility, no campfire or lanterns, and finish the next day around 1000 or 1100 hours. Remind your men of VC tactics. They stay hidden in the day and like to seek and engage at night. But nothing's for sure in this area, so we'll need to keep moving. I think we'll be fine, but we gotta be on high alert. Also, remind your men of their training. If we end up in a conflict, it's the one thing that will save them. Any questions? Are there armor units close by, or will they be sending in planes? I just want to know where the artillery fire will be originating from.
Sergeant Deal, it's a good question. I don't blame you one bit for asking. Is the fire coming from over our heads or over our shoulders? Right now, my instructions are to report back to an armed unit. The friendly fire will be over our shoulders, men. Any other questions? Sir. Yes, sir. Cut the sir crap, Sergeant Prescott. Just ask the question. Will there be another platoon? I mean, are they sending backup? We're on a reconnaissance mission. They don't send the whole badass army for that. It's just that they're always sending us into hairy situations without backup. Harlan had anger in his eyes, but also distress. He had grown tired of these kinds of confrontations with the sergeant. Hairy situations are what we're here for. Unless our radio gets blown to kingdom come, don't sweat it. That's our backup. Any other questions? Silence from the men. Good. Have your squads ready to go. We head out at 1300 hours. And Sergeant Prescott, get your attitude right before we leave. I don't want you bugging out on us. If I hear of your pathetic view of things rubbing off on any of your men, it's going in my report. Are we clear? Bobby's face had turned an interesting blotchy shade of red. Sir. Yes, sir. Then dismissed. The afternoon was filled with the grueling aches and sweat of a 7-hour hike through the darkened jungle. After a dirty, hasty camp set up, 4 of the soldiers, with silence orders, took the overnight guard shift. In the morning, the air was a little lighter, a little cooler, giving some relief. But the final hike was longer than anticipated. All told, the hiking and camping had taken a 24-hour complete rotation of the earth. Harlan ordered his men to eat, hydrate, and rest up. The next phase of the mission would take their best focus and concentration. After the rest break, he sends out 4 reconnaissance teams, consisting of 6 soldiers each, on scouting missions. Hours later, when the scout teams arrive back, they give reports of 2 hidden VC camps. Harlan decides to wait in relaying the coordinates until they are exiting the area, putting more ground between the artillery fire and his men. He relays the coordinates by radio 30 minutes later, not realizing all hell was about to break loose. Guerrilla warfare consists of small-scale conflicts where stealthy combatants use the element of surprise to eliminate the opponent. Harlan was wary of this tactic and knew the VC widely used it. They would sneak up on unaware U.S. troops, attack them, and leave before risking capture. This kind of warfare had caused a lot of casualties and was the main reason Harlan's platoon was sent on this mission. Coming to the end of a large wooded area, Harlan's platoon enters a different kind of terrain. It's largely elephant grass that varies in length from waist to shoulder. About 300 yards away, the area turns back to the same wooded jungle terrain. About 50 yards into it, Harlan can smell the enemy. He throws up his hand, ordering the troops to stop. Keep your eyes open, men. Scanning closely, he notices patches of flat grass slowly rising. Move back into the woods. It's an ambush. Go, and keep moving no matter what. They hadn't gone more than 10 steps when suddenly a hail of rounds zipped all around them. These were the nasty 12.7s, .51 caliber machine guns, normally used for anti-aircraft. They sounded like bullwhips snapping all around. One of the men takes a bullet in a grenade on his belt. Suddenly, there's this tremendous flash and plume of white smoke. Inside the smoke, the soldier can be seen thrashing around screaming because this thing is burning him to death. He falls out of sight, and the grass around him can be seen smoldering and flopping around. The men were near mass confusion, many stopping and hiding in the grass. Keep moving, I said. Do you hear me? Get off your asses and move it. Harlan, now holding an M16 in each hand, sweeps the area where the shooting was coming from, screaming at the top of his lungs as he shoots. Finally, he turns and shouts the same command, keep moving. Over and over he repeats it until his men are back in the safety net of the woods. He now orders his men to return fire, and a fierce firefight takes place. The grass can be seen moving, rolling in waves. In the area they had just come from, multiple explosions shake the ground, possibly from grenades. Due to the high grass, the VC hadn't realized Harlan's men had made it back to the woods. He shouts for the rocket launcher, ordering the private with the shoulder-mounted weapon to fire away. After the blast, the VC start retreating. The danger level falls quickly to near zero. The VC are not always well trained. Still, all in all, it is surprising that there is only 1 dead soldier. Although there are many superficial injuries, only 2 are serious. One soldier has metal in his leg, another in his shoulder, making the medics work quickly. After the wounded are cared for, the dead soldier is placed on a mobile stretcher, and the platoon starts advancing again, this time skirting the edges of the woods. Soon they hit a connective trail and then the main trail, where they stop at the crisscross to rest up a bit. Harlan's teeth are clenched tight, his shoulders knotted with aches. It had been an ugly mission, and it wasn't getting any prettier. Out here you can overlook nothing, and things can still go wrong. He scans the area because there was always something oozing around the jungle. A little later, he is sitting with his eyes closed when he feels something come between his face and the hot sun. "Sir, what do you make of it?" He opens his eyes and sees the sun shining from behind a soldier, illuminating the outer edges of him. "What do I make of what, Private? Of what just happened to us back there? Of this war, of the dangers, sir?"
Harlan tilts his head to one side, peering deeper, softer at the young soldier. "I think it's love." "I don't understand, sir. But you do understand love. Vietnam is a gathering of love. With each step, each light year of second, a foot soldier is always almost dead. In such a circumstance, you can't help but love. If you're married, you love your wife, your kids, you love your mom and dad, your football or baseball team, hamburgers on the grill, the smell of the beach. You think about these things on a different level. You love your own pulse, your future, everything that might be lost or never come to be. Intimacy with death carries with it a corresponding intimacy with life. Jokes are funnier, colors more colorful. You love the musty hot air, even though it stings, because it's a part of being alive. You love because you're always almost dead. Today we played a cat-and-mouse game with the enemy to try and find out their position. They're brave because they operate in places everyone else is afraid to go. In a little while, artillery fire will kill many of them. Today they tried to kill you, and you try to kill them. Tomorrow, if you saw them in a bar, you might find that you like them. You might drink with them, be friends with them. They love the same as you love. They love the same things for the same reasons. Vietnam is a gathering of love. The private nods, turns, and walks away. Again, Harlan closes his eyes tight. As always, the balmy day hanging around him is like half-congealed jello. He rests until his mental alarm clock goes off, ushering him slowly to his feet. He slaps down the end of his shirt collar. One side had pushed up while he was resting. Rubbing his fingers across it, he smooths it down and wipes a handkerchief over the most recent beads of sweat covering his face. He looks down and notices that a bullet had taken off a button. That was close, he thinks. Picking up his backpack and directing his men to do the same, he slips his arms through the straps. A few muffled groans could be heard as the soldiers stood up. "It's time we move out." "Hallelujah." One soldier standing near Harlan breathed slowly, softly. "Check your gear. Don't leave anything behind." In another 5 minutes, the platoon has gone beyond the crisscross part of the trail. "Lieutenant, sir," a voice shouts. "The coordinates, sir." We go to the left. The right trail leads us back to the area of the artillery fire. Another half hour, and they'll be spraying it hard. Harlan stands frozen in place, thinking about the voice, knowing he has to go right, playing out various scenarios of how he was going to explain it. No matter how he approached it, it would still be a problem. In the end, he knew he couldn't force him with a direct order. He could only try to persuade him. Sergeant Deal was sharp and would only give in to reason, and Harlan had no reason to give. "Sergeant Deal, are you sure about that?" "I am, sir." "Do you trust me?" "Yes, sir, but the coordinates. Have I ever steered you wrong?" "No, sir, you've gotten us out of many a pickle jars. But like I said, the coordinates. I'm trying to save your head on this one, same as always. You're married, and you've 2 sisters, I believe, not to mention your mother and father. Do you want to see them again?" "Yes, sir. Of course you do. We all want to see our families again. I'm not going to order you to go right. If you choose to go left, that's up to you, but you stand a good chance of being killed. If you're lucky, you won't be spotted, but you can't count on that." "But how, sir? How do you know to go right?" "The answer to that would take some time, and we've no more to waste. Besides, I'm not too sure you would like the answer. I think I'll stay here, sir, with any others that feel the same way. At least until the artillery fire, then we'll know for sure which way to go. Suit yourself, Sergeant, but you stand a good chance of being attacked by the VC. We've stayed here too long as it is, used up our safety net. I think you know that. We need to keep moving. In a few hours, we'll be outside the free fire zone. Sir, if we don't die first. Harlan knew if he continued the debate that more men would decide to stay. I thought I made it clear. I've no time to explain. Stay at your own risk. You won't be written up. All those going with me. We're leaving now. So, move on. Before disappearing into the jungle, he hesitates, looks back, and smiles. Try not to die before I can kill you myself, Sergeant. Yes, sir. And right back at you. That was it. The two men never talked again. 8 others decided to wait it out with Sergeant Deal. Out of the 9 that stayed, 2 were killed. Another, after being fatally wounded, died later, and still 2 others were seriously injured, including Sergeant Deal. A small VC squad bared down hard on them for 15 minutes. Had the VC not been poorly equipped, they might have killed them all. As it was, they disappeared after running low on ammunition. The U.S. soldiers were later helicoptered out, but not before witnessing the artillery fire sweep the wrong coordinates. Later, it was determined that the coordinates Lieutenant Lancaster had radioed and were in fact the area off the right side of the crisscross trail. The soldier relaying that made an error, resulting in friendly fire that could have taken the lives of the whole platoon had it not been for Harlan's actions. Sergeant Deal was shipped out to a stateside hospital where he spent the next 6 months recuperating. He was sent home with full disability benefits. Harlan was later given the Bronze Star for Valor, along with the Medal of Honor and the Silver Star for his part in the mission. He never received the Purple Heart because, after 4 years of combat service as lead officer of a reconnaissance squad, he was never once injured in battle.
And again, we see the end of another chapter in the Fifth Pinnacle. Check back soon for Chapter 20. Hope you are enjoying audiobooks by H.G. Shuler on YouTube.